All right, I believe we are live now with another episode of Podcast to be named later. Of course,
Hmm.
I am sitting here with Steve. It's been a while since we've actually done anything. Kind of life has kind of hit us pretty hard with a lot of stuff so quickly. So, how have things been lately, man?
Busy. you know,
Yeah, I
life
hear you.
is, life has been very busy, but we are in the tail end of winter, and all eyes are on pitchers and catchers reporting, and
Just
some
here within a couple
baseball.
days. Yeah, I
Yeah,
believe the Cubs were supposed to. I believe the Cubs are the first team to report, and I think they were supposed to do that today or on the 8th, one of the two. I can't remember which day. I know the Brewers don't report until next week.
and we got some spring training games, I think, here in like 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2.5 weeks. Should have our first round of spring training games coming. Where we usually get like teams like the Tigers or the Yankees playing some random colleges. Those are
Right.
usually the fun games to where you just see a bunch of random minor leaguers that you'll never hear from again.
Right. So let's talk. Let's talk some baseball then. We've got you know free agency is you know, still going on. A lot of key guys have been signed. Um, and a lot of teams have kind of taken shape. But there are still some key guys out there.
Yeah,
And it kind of comes to the curious case of Alex Bregman. That's the big one out there. The
mm-hmm.
31-year-old third baseman. Um, no deal.
Yeah. I am very surprised he is not signed yet. I figured he would have signed, months ago. Um, I honestly
Right.
kind of thought once the big shoe fell with,
With Soto.
yeah, once Soto signed, I figured Bregman would have signed like a day or two later, but that didn't happen. And
Yeah, because
it's
Bregman
like,
seemed like a not too long after winter meetings kind of signing, but here we are, and all rumors are indicating that he does not want to take a short-term deal. And so it's a matter of who is going to blink first, a team or Scott Boras and Alex Bregman. And um, I think it'll be interesting because if we're being realistic, if anybody is going to sign him to a longer term deal, it's probably going to be an American League team because, and we'll touch on this, the NL at this point is almost like a three-team race with the Phillies and the Padres trying to see who wants to be second place behind the Dodgers.
oh God, yeah, like at this
And
point
so,
anymore, with everything that the Dodgers have done this offseason, which we all saw coming. I mean, the Dodgers are this massive conglomerate with all this damn money to spend, and they spent it again.
I
And
know.
they bought basically every massive named reliever you could think of to put behind that bullpen. And not only did they get the big name relievers, they got the big fish out there in the international waters, Roki Sasaki.
Yeah, and they their rotation, their number five starter could be an ace or number two on pretty much any team in baseball.
Yep.
And their bullpen is fantastic. Yeah, they missed out on Juan Soto, but they didn't really need him. They really didn't.
Yeah,
So,
100%.
so I know there had been a little bit of talk of maybe Bregman going to LA. If that were going to happen, I think it would have been done. And kind of the rumors I'm seeing, it's really two teams. And if you've seen other things, like let me know. But it's really coming down to Houston and the Tigers, it seems like.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've been hearing. I've heard a few twinklings uh, about potentially the Padres as well, but I don't know what the Padres do with him because you got Manny
Yeah,
Machado. But
yeah,
I
yeah. You
mean,
got Machado over there at third, and that's why I see it really as those two. And I think he's an interesting fit on both teams, and interesting in a good way, actually. Like, ooh, that's not a fit. Um, Obviously, Houston, makes all the sense in the world. That's where he's played his whole career. Houston's an older team, and a lot of those key guys from there. I don't want to call it a dynasty, right? But from from a divisional standpoint, they kind of were. They kind of have owned the AL West, and a lot of those guys are gone now, and it's kind of just him and Altuve left. But that team's getting older, and so him staying in Houston kind of makes sense from a one last little push kind of thing. And Houston also signed Christian Walker to a 3-year deal. 34-year-old Christian Walker. You kind of are seeing the trend here for Houston, I think, of older veteran team maybe trying to have one last push here the last couple years, help Alex Bregman can come in and, try to help them do that. They won the division last year with 88 wins. Can they do it again like that? I don't know. I don't think so. I think they're going to need to win more games than that. But that's actually why I think Detroit is, I think, a better fit. I think that's a team that's young, made the playoffs last year. His veteran presence, I think, would be so valuable to that clubhouse that, if I was Alex Bregman looking for the best fit for longer than 2 years, I really think it's Detroit. But I think it's just going to come down to who blinks first, Houston, Detroit, or Bregman. All reports indicate that nobody's wanting to offer him a 6 to 7 year deal, and that's what he's wanting. And I don't. He's not going to want to sit out there forever. He's going to want to sign a contract somewhere here in the next 2-3 weeks so he can report and not miss spring training. So it's going to be really interesting to watch.
yeah, because we've seen how players kind of come out of the gates when they do miss spring training, and it's not pretty at all. And we've had players recently, sign very late in the spring training and basically go into the season with no warm up at all and get seriously injured with a near career ending injury. So,
Right.
and we know Bregman's not a stupid person at all. So we're like you said. I mean, he's gonna want to sign somewhere or somewhere real soon because he's got to get that. He's got to want to get that tune up in. But I just don't see a 31-year-old Bregman who's going to be 32 here shortly getting a 6 to 7 year contract from anybody, especially out of these teams that are getting younger and younger with all this talent. Like,
Right.
yes, these are going to need that kind of experience out of somebody like Bregman, but they're just not going to want to spend that kind of money and all those years for somebody who's probably going to start falling off big time here within the next 3 4 years.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of the free agency news. I think that's worth talking about. Um, I know you were kind of wanting to talk about, maybe some teams and how they're shaping up, and talked about starting in the NL West.
Yeah, I would say we could just start with the Dodgers, but I mean, might as well as just start with who they didn't sign because that would be a much shorter list. God,
um,
it just seemed like every single day during this whole entire offseason, it's like so and so was signed. It's like, oh man, who did he go to? Of course, LA.
right.
At this point, it's getting ridiculous, and like I'm like at this, it's one of those things to where you hear both sides of the fence about whether or not it's helping baseball or ruining baseball because you've got this team that has an owner willing to spend money to win,
Yeah.
to do everything
And
it takes to win.
because you're looking at a team right now. Here's their rotation, right? Blake
Mm-hmm.
Snell, Yamamoto, Tyler Glasnow, Shohei Ohtani, Sasaki, Tony Gonsolin, Dustin May. I mean, that's six, or seven guys right there. And if you just take the top five, Blake Snell, Yamamoto, Glasnow, Ohtani, Sasaki, that's an ace on most teams.
Uh-huh.
Like, you know, and that's their five, you know, and then you go to their bullpen and it's just loaded. Um, and so, kudos to Arizona and bringing in Corbin Burns and trying to compete. Um, but, you know, the Dodgers are loaded. They're going to be the team to beat. Kudos to San Diego and Arizona for trying to compete because, you can catch lightning in a bottle.
Yep.
Um, you can pull off an upset, an injury here or there to the Dodgers, and who knows? Um, but right now they're very very loaded. Their lineup is obviously not lacking either, so they can score. Their pitching is phenomenal. But like I said, lightning in a bottle. Kudos to Arizona and San Diego for knowing that they've got good teams, and maybe they can catch lightning in a bottle in a short series. Um, but it does appear though that it's LA and everybody else in the NL, um, and that's why as a Cardinals fan I go, yeah, like there's no reason to bring Paul Goldschmidt back. Let him
Uh-huh.
walk. You know, build your farm system. Put your effort in the next couple years into building that up and getting your team ready for what you're going to want to do. You know, they're going to have a new general manager after this year because they're doing the weird transition and set yourself up for the future. And I think that's what you're seeing a lot of these teams in the NL doing outside of, uh, the three in the West, Philly. The Cubs are pretending to try, which is weird. But a lot of teams are just kind of, they're looking at the realization of Philly, San Diego, and LA, and going, do we really want to make this investment? And that's why the American League is much more intriguing right now, in terms of how competitive that league is going to be. Um, was a little shocked to see Boston not really make any major moves in free agency. that's a fan base and a franchise ready to start winning again. And I
Uh-huh.
really, really, really thought that they were going to make some moves. I thought Alex Bregman could have been a really good fit for them, but they didn't add any impact starting pitching. And so I don't see them trying to be a player in that. Um, I mean, Patrick Sandoval, they signed him, but they didn't really upgrade anything. So, uh, I guess they did sign Walker Bueller, but these are 1 year deals. So
Right.
there's no commitment to trying to have a solid rotation long term. So I don't see him in play for Bregman, and it makes it really interesting because it's like it's really weird to see Boston yet again just going to concede the division over to the Yankees or Orioles, um, and not try to be a player in that. Um, and then and I know I went off topic from the NL West, but you have the AL Central out there where the Royals are still looking like they're going to try to be good. I think the Twins have taken their step back.
Yeah.
Um, and so you're going, okay, Detroit, you're going to go in for that Alex Bregman move and try to put yourself over the top because you're going to need to do something because the Royals are lurking and the Guardians don't look like they're going anywhere
Oh
either.
God.
And then you have the AL West that, I think, you know, Texas had their one little year. Are they going to rebound? Houston has been consistent out there. Um, Seattle always seems to be a threat and fades. I just don't see anything there in terms of a front runner, and it makes the American League just that much more intriguing. And I guess I do want to touch back to the NL. I mean, I guess we do have to say the Mets, right? They did sign Juan Soto. Um, they did make that move. They did, end up keeping Pete Alonso, in that lineup. And, they do have Lindor at short. They signed Sean Manaea. So, the Mets, obviously, Frankie Montas, like, kudos to the Mets. They always try. They're willing to spend money and try to put out a team. But it always feels like when the Mets do this, they suck. And then
Uh-huh.
when they concede defeat and blow things up, and you think they're gonna suck, they end up making a run like they did last year. I,
Right.
I, I feel like that's Mets baseball. Um, but speaking of Mets baseball, though, you did send me that picture of their alternates.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, those were
Those.
sick.
Oh God, yeah. That was by far, probably, arguably the second best thing that that team has done this off season. By far, because I honestly don't think they needed Pete Alonso back. They probably should have just walked away from that. It's been done. They got
But
Juan Soto.
they got a
They
good
did have
deal.
Pete Alonso.
But they
They
got a
did.
good deal, huh?
They really did get a good deal for him. I mean, they didn't spend an assload of money, and Pete
Two
Alonso wanted a really short-term deal, and
two
they got
years,
it to him.
54. 2 years, 54 million. Alonzo kicking himself for walking away from. I can't remember the exact contract the Mets had offered him as an extension, but it was like a 6 or 7 year deal. That was 100+ million. I think maybe even 200 plus. Says
Yeah,
no, ends up slumping. Mets get to bring him back on a relatively cheap deal considering the market. Um, so not a bad deal. Maybe the Mets can compete with the Phillies. I don't see it. I still think the Phillies are the team to beat in that division. Um, like I said, when the Mets have expectations, they tend to crumble under those. So
Yeah, I agree. I don't think, in all honesty, I don't even think the Mets are going to finish in second place in the division.
people forget how good the Braves were before everybody and their brother got hurt.
Yep. The Braves, without all of those injuries, are arguably the best team in that division.
Yeah.
Arguably. You could easily make a massive debate about the Phillies because of all the moves that they've made. And because it's the Phillies, and you got Bryce Harper and all the guys that they've got and their pitching rotation and their relievers. But
Mhm.
I mean, with how the Braves are, when they're 100%, they always make a huge fight with the Phillies for that division. Always.
Yeah. And I'm going to ask you a question. Is the NL Central the worst division in baseball?
I think it might be now. Well, I'm not sure about that. I still think it might be the AL West.
It's one of those two.
Yeah.
Like
I
for
think it's going
sure.
to be, yeah, I think it's going to be very close on that because both of those divisions, like, they beat the piss out of each other every year. And there's no
But
reason for it.
but I go, if you look at let me pull up projected win totals here.
I know the Brewers are only projected 80 wins this year.
Who is?
The Brewers.
Probably.
Cubs are projected, I believe, 95.
And I think that's product of how bad the division is going to be.
Yeah.
Um, ah. So you've got Houston is projected at 92 and a half. Oh wait, that was 2024. Uh, no, come on. Darn, can't go there. I'm like, just show me the projected win totals.
All right. From what I'm seeing, uh, for this year,
Oh, here we go.
Texas is projected 89.3, Houston 86.8, Seattle 86.1. So you're looking the Rangers to win the division by 3 games.
What'd you have the Rangers at?
89.
Hmm. What update is that one? I'm just seeing if the one I'm looking at is more up to date or not.
This is as of today
Oh, okay. I was gonna say
from
I'm looking
Pacoda.
from what?
The Pacoda standings.
Oh, here's
The guys
Vegas.
that do all the projections and shit every year.
Let's go to Vegas here. All right. Cubs 85 and a half on DraftKings. A few other ones 87 and a half, 85 and a half, 85 and a half. 85 and a half is kind of the consensus there.
Yeah.
Seattle 84 and a half. The Brewers 83 and a half. Where's Texas? Texas 85 and a half. So I guess let's look at it like this. AL West outright winners. The odds favor Houston. Seattle and Texas are tied for second, and then the Angels, and then Oakland. Oh, here we go. Over under, yeah, Cubs at 86.5. So your projected division winner in the NL Central is the Cubs at 86.5 as their over under. Um, and then you've got the Brewers, and then you've got the Reds, and then the Pirates and Cardinals tied. If you think in a 7-game series right now, who would you take? The Cubs or the Astros? Did we lose Corey? Oh, there he is. I hear noise again. Are you
I
still
just
there?
scared.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I have no idea what you've said.
Oh shit! I said I would probably take the Astros
Right.
just
Okay.
because I would
So
also take into consideration of management, and Craig Counsell has shown in a 7-game series to make really stupid ass decisions.
okay. Would you take the Brewers or the Rangers in a 7-game series?
The Rangers,
Okay.
the Brewers
Would you,
don't really have very good pitching at all.
would you take the Reds or the Mariners?
The Mariners,
Would you take the Angels or the Cardinals?
Cardinals.
And then Oakland or the Pirates?
Oh God, that one's kind of tough. Oh Jesus!
I would take Pittsburgh and just assume that they'll throw Paul Skeens like 3 times. But the
Yeah,
point
that's
there
what I
is
was.
we go the top 3 teams in the division of the NL West seem to maybe have an edge over the top 3 in the NL Central.
Uh-huh.
So I think that's why I think that they're probably the worst division in baseball. Um, it's kind of weird that this doesn't show me the AL over under, which is weird. Just the NL over under, and then it gives me the odds for the AL, which is weird.
Yeah,
Um,
because I looked at the Pacoda standings. Uh, those are what the like
so I go to
everybody goes off of and shit.
see, and I'm going to Vegas. Like those people know something there. Uh,
Right.
um, but I do think it kind of goes to show that um, the NL Central is very lacking. But I think it also shows that the AL West is maybe not so sexy either,
Right.
where you're not even necessarily sure Houston's the team to beat out there.
Mm-hmm.
Where, you know, 3 years ago, that would have been blasphemy to even say.
Yeah.
And I think it shows like nothing against their management and front office or anything. They said we're going to put a team together and win, and they did, and they won for quite a while.
Yeah, they did, and they did it
And
doing playing Moneyball. They built from within, and
and
everything else
started to
you
spend.
from here.
Yeah, and so they're this is what happens to teams when they're at their tail end of the twilight. Um, is what Houston is right now, which is an upper 80 win team and somehow still playing baseball in October.
Yep.
But, to the point of the Dodgers and all their spending, Manfred did come out today and said, fans are concerned about a lack of a salary cap. And so I I think it's definitely something that baseball's probably going to look at. down the road, and anybody who says I'm crazy, everybody said it was crazy that the NL would never adopt a DH.
Mm-hmm.
And what does the NL have? A DH.
Yep.
So I can see a salary cap on the horizon in like the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, because
I
I
think
do not see Manfred implementing a salary cap in the middle of the Dodgers dynasty right now with having $755 trillion wrapped up into that team.
right.
Because then he'd be
Um,
like, well, sorry, you got to gut your team. Good luck.
yeah, and what they would do, I really think they would probably follow the NBA format with the minimum floor to force like teams like Oakland and the White Sox to spend money.
Yeah.
And then they would have the cap, and then your luxury tax, and then the hard cap, um, where there's those different tiers. But they would basically what they would have to do is, like, let's say in 5 years they go, um, we're going to do a salary cap. You're going to have to put that amount out and say this is what it's going to be, and then another 5 years later, so teams can position themselves
Mm-hmm.
to meet the cap. And that's the problem with trying to institute that cap right now in baseball is, yeah,
That's going to be the problem with instituting the cap for a long time because baseball is the only sport in, any pro sport in any of the four major sports that, deals with this because you don't see, 10, 12, 13-year deals in football or
yeah,
soccer or basketball or
15
hockey.
year 15-year deal to Soto. And and the NBA they have restrictions on the amount of years.
Uh-huh.
You can't offer a guy, a free agent, more than a 4-year deal unless you have bird rights, and then you can offer the 5. And then depending on how things go with that player, and if they stay at teams, you can start getting into like supermax contracts and all that jazz. But it's you can't go and offer an NBA player right now a 15-year deal. You could in football, they don't, because you, you're you don't want that guy to suffer a major injury, 3 years into a 15-year deal, because then you're dealing with a lot of dead cap for however long that might be. But
Right. But then again,
baseball,
in football, they deal a lot more with 100% guaranteed money, where in baseball, it's like, you got to play for your money, dude. If you don't play, you ain't getting paid.
and so yeah, it's going to be an interesting dynamic if as they talk about what they want to do from a salary cap standpoint, because I don't think the rumblings are going to go away, because
No, they're just going to get more.
you're seeing more and more of a disparity between the top, 5 or 6 payrolls uh, to the next tier, and
Mhm.
it's going to hurt TV ratings, you know. Um,
Yeah.
and that's where the money is. The money's not in ticket sales. Um,
Oh, God,
it's
no.
it's in TV and advertisements. And so if people aren't going to tune in, it's gonna hurt. Um, so I'm not saying tickets are cheap by any means, folks. Either, like, they're not.
Oh, yeah.
They're not cheap.
Tickets are
But
freaking insanely expensive, especially like to go to a Dodger game because they got to pay Otani some way.
right. Well, they only have to pay him $1 million, so.
Well, yeah, they just got to,
Uh,
they got to save up all that money for the future.
so and speaking of the Dodgers, so you've probably seen that Indianola is going down to Busch to
Hmm.
play the game. So yeah, we're actually
Yep.
gonna go down there. So I'll get to watch. I'll get to watch this Dodgers team in person. Um, Throttle my Cardinals, um,
Yep.
and then watch Indianola baseball after that. But it'll be I'll be really curious to see who pitches for the Dodgers that day when the time comes. So I'm pretty excited. It would be kind of nice to see Ohtani pitch, maybe. So
Yeah, it'll be interesting because
yeah.
I've been hearing a lot of rumblings that the Dodgers are not going to allow Otani to pitch anymore.
You know what? Why would you
And
look at your rotation?
I know.
There's no,
And
you don't
I've
need him to.
right. And in all honesty, like we talked about in a previous episode as well, I mean, you keep having him pitch and he keeps screwing up his elbow. Eventually, he's going to hurt his elbow so much from Tommy John to where he's not going to be able to hit.
Yeah,
Then you destroy the greatest pure hitter, arguably the greatest power hitter of all time. I mean, I'm definitely not going to say the greatest pure hitter of all time because I think that's a toss up between Tony Gwynn and
oh, it's Tony Gwynn, right? I mean, best pure
I
hitter. We're
mean,
not talking, we're not talking about if you're saying pure hitter, I'm not thinking like, oh, this is a guy who, comes up to the plate and I fear he's gonna jack one out. Um, no, Tony Gwynn is gonna hit the ball. He's gonna put the bat on the ball, period,
yeah,
and get on base. Most like, you know, his lifetime batting average is insane. He didn't strike out hardly at all. Um,
right.
he's the best pure hitter of all time because he could make contact. Now, if you want to talk about greatest hitter, I think you've got a lot of guys you can make an argument for there.
Oh,
Um,
100%.
between Pete Rose, Ichiro, uh, I Manny Ramirez was a fantastic hitter as well. People kind of forget
Yeah.
how good of a hitter. I think there's a lot of guys you can throw in that conversation of greatest hitter, but in terms of a guy that you're just like bat on ball, because that's what you need is bat on ball. Because anytime bat on ball happens, you're either getting a base hit, an error is made, or they field it and get you out.
Hmm.
There's more outcomes with bat on ball than there is, Aaron Judge up at the plate going, well, it's going to be a long fly ball, a home run, or he's just striking out.
Right. I mean, that's what I was telling my buddy Chaz about when we've heard about Alonso taking his or signing with the Mets. I was like, I mean, and all like, I was like, it took this damn long for Alonso to sign with the Mets. We all knew it was coming because nobody wanted somebody that was getting older and starting to fall apart at the plate because now anymore, all Pete Alonso does is homer. Well, not just homer. He either hits extra bases or he pops up or strikes out. That's it.
Do you think? Do you think the home run derby ruined him?
Yes,
Because there's always so much
one
talk
hundred percent.
about these guys in the home run derby, and there's been some players who have said it too. Um, that after the derby, they're not the same because they screw their swings up in the derby.
Mm-hmm. And Pete
Um,
Alonso, like the 4 or 5 years in a row he was in the Derby, tried way too. He was way too damn into the Derby. Like teammates were even like people were even talking about like a month or two prior to the Derby. He was trying to perfect his Derby swing in the cages before games and shit. And it's like, for fucking what, dude? It's a damn home run derby. You're getting played to play baseball, not hit a home run derby. Like
but
the home run derby, 100%
chicks
destroyed
dig
Pete Alonso.
chicks dig the long ball, right? I mean, And that's been kind of the problem with baseball in general, has been chicks dig the long ball and home runs, and guys wanting to hit home runs because teams are paying for that now. And that's more exciting than fundamental baseball, you know, because it's like, oh, the big home run, rather than what's more exciting, a guy coming up and jacking a home run, and then the next guy jacking a home run, and then the next three guys striking out, or a guy coming off, drawing a leadoff walk, and then you get, you know, uh, a good lead, and then you get a single, into right center, but the runner stretches it to third, so you have runners on the corner. Then the next guy hits one in the gap for a double that scores two. What's more exciting? People prefer
in
the
all
home
honesty,
runs.
to me, like I think the average fan anymore prefers the home runs,
Right.
but the baseball purists love that small ball.
Oh
We
yeah.
love we love seeing the leadoff walk and then a hit by pitch or a single and then a frozen rope into the gap because you love seeing that runner from first just hit the afterburners and score from first every
Yeah.
time.
Oh yeah. And like I've said, one of the greatest games I've ever watched is Game 5 of the NLDS with the Phillies and Cardinals with Chris Carpenter and Roy Halladay.
Uh-huh.
The fans who go
100%.
the average fan that watches baseball today would hate that game because they didn't score.
Uh-huh. God, I was on the edge of my seat that entire damn game because
Oh, it was fantastic.
you could feel the offense was just ready to explode, but nobody could.
Yeah. I mean, those games are amazing, and you just don't get them anymore, and
Uh-uh.
that sucks.
Nope. And it's
Those teams built themselves for games like that. We're gonna put in good pitching. We're gonna have uh, four pretty good hitters in our lineup. Because the Cardinals, they're throwing out Pujols, Edmonds. You know, I can't remember if that year if it was Larry Walker or uh, shoot, now I can't think of his name, but the guy that played for Houston for a while, played outfield. But
Berkman.
Lance Berkman, yeah. But I think it was Berkman in that lineup. I think Larry Walker was earlier, but you know, putting together a handful of pretty good hitters with a couple who are really dangerous, like a Pujols, and then they fill out the rest of their lineup with guys who find ways to get on base but are really good fielders. David Eckstein was the freaking
Right.
MVP of the World Series.
The
Against the
least
Tigers.
expected guy to do so.
And so team that they built themselves that way to their strengths, and now it's like, well, we can't do that. We just want to get guys who hit home runs.
Yep.
And
Because that's how a lot of AAU coaches teach you now. It's all about launch angle now, and it's like, no, stop teaching launch angle. You need to have these kids put the bat on the ball because look at what Aaron Judge did in the playoffs. Strike out, strike out, strike out, strike out, strike out, strike out.
yeah,
The most dangerous hitter, one of the most dangerous hitters in the World Series, struck out 9 times out of 10. It was ridiculous.
yeah,
The player
and that's
that
why
the
bat on
that the
ball.
Yankees needed the most,
That's why bat
Juan
on ball
Soto was
is.
insane.
That's why bat on ball is so important, because when you put bat on ball, now it's up to the other team to do something.
Yep.
Because when you put the bat on the ball, now they need to field it, and then they need to maybe execute a throw. And so bat on the ball is so key, because if you can't put bat on ball, that other team doesn't have to do anything in the field. Your runner on base is worthless. Because even if you put bat on ball and you get out, maybe you put the bat on the ball and it was a deep fly ball and you were able to get a sacrifice fly.
Right. And I think, that's like one of the biggest things wrong with baseball today is like you got so many of these guys out there that don't give a rat's ass about just getting on base anymore. They just want to hit homers. And, then you've got pitchers. And then it's like over the last 20 years, we've seen more and more teams going away from pitchers like Greg Maddux towards pitchers that throw 100 plus miles an hour.
Well, and you're no longer allowed to pitch more than like 6 innings anymore either. So,
right.
Baseball has definitely changed over the last, I don't even want to go out 20, 30 years. The last 10, the last 10 years even has changed so much. You don't have guys that are pitching deep into ball games consistently anymore. You're not seeing hit and runs. You're seeing more home runs. You're seeing a different kind of baseball being played. And it's going to be interesting to see how that turns out.
And I think that's one reason why I enjoyed watching Brewers baseball so much last season was because they played so much more of that old school 80s, 90s baseball, like the small ball. Get a runner on, get him on, or get a runner on to first or second, or even if he just gets on to first, steal second, get him over to third, any way possible, and then just small ball. Period. The Brewers won so many games playing small ball last year, and
here's like an interesting thing too for baseball. The World Series ratings since 2016 had gone down every single year outside of two blips. Last year, because you had LA, New York, so you had those markets, and in 2020, which would have been what? COVID.
yep.
So it is interesting to see. 2016 had a massive spike up to 22 million, almost 23 million. Who was in that World Series? Oh, the Cubs and Indians. That explains it. But if you take that blip out, though, 2017 had 18 million. Who was in that one? Houston, LA. So you've seen a big decrease in ratings. You had 22 million, almost 23 million people in 16. You had 14 last year, up from 9 million the year before, which was down from 11 million, which was 21 and 22 were about the same, 11.7 million. And those were up from 2020 from COVID. But baseball's seen a decrease in their ratings in the World Series, the biggest series of them all.
Interestingly enough,
and
go ahead.
I was going to say, and I think that's because part of it is because of the product.
See, I think it's a multitude of things. Because interestingly enough,
more people watched the Cardinals Tigers World Series in 06 than they did the Dodgers Yankees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's a multitude of things. Because when I was in college, I did a paper based on the decline of baseball ratings. So I went through television ratings from the very first World Series all the way till present day, and I can't remember when this was. This is like 15 years ago or some shit. But like just going through it, like obviously in the very early days, when there was only like 3 channels or something,
Yep.
the World Series, they had like 80 million viewers every year. And then as like more channels kept getting added to television, the
You could see the
viewership,
decrease.
yeah, the decrease began. And then cable television started, and then the decrease got bigger and bigger and
Uh-huh.
bigger. And then satellite television hit, and then it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then the current generations of Americans, like in the 90s and the 2000s, to where, they just could not sit still and just watch something for 3 hours that wasn't football. And it just
Right.
kept getting smaller and smaller and
Because
smaller.
that has been one of the things I've said. Because I think, there's so much validity to how television has changed over time and why you would see rating decreases.
Mm-hmm.
But nothing has changed in television from 2016 to present day other than streaming.
Mm-hmm.
And but that doesn't really impact sports. Other than especially baseball. I mean, NFL, yeah, you got to go and maybe watch on like Prime Video or Netflix on Christmas. But sports, they're basically on cable. They're there. They're easy to consume. So
Right.
from a television standpoint, over the last decade, nothing has changed in the TV world. The product of baseball has changed, and then what people enjoy watching has changed. Because I've told people when they said, I can't sit there for 3 hours and watch a baseball game, because that's been part of baseball. Like, oh, we need to get our game times down to this 2 hour mark. And people go, I can't watch for 3 hours, but you watch a football game for three.
Right. And it's been proven, like, it's been actually timed with how much action on the field between football and baseball. There is more live action on the field in baseball than there is in football per game, period. Because on the average, it's only, what, like between 4 to 10 seconds of live action in football at any given time. Where in baseball, there's like literal minutes of live action every single time.
Um, but I also think, though, the one thing people are, and this is why I think people watch due to football, people are all about highlights now. And so
Uh-huh.
football is a game of highlights, right? It's all these little bursts from play to play. The play starts, the play ends, and that's a highlight. And in
Yeah.
baseball, you don't get that because you get the opening pitch of the game, you know, ball one, back to the pitcher, next pitch, ball two, back to the pitcher, next pitch, strike one, back to the pitcher, next pitch. And they're waiting for the highlight. Like, we've had 4 pitches. Well, I've got 2 NFL plays done.
Yep.
And 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 that's something that baseball can't fix. You can't fix that. That's a
Uh-uh.
consumer problem. Uh, you you don't get to like break that up the way football does. And so it's a consumer problem. Uh, I think everything is cyclical as well. Um, Everything has peaks and valleys. Um, I, you know, Maybe the Dodgers doing this is the best thing that could happen for baseball right now because it will give people a reason to watch, whether it's to love it or hate it. That's the thing. Like, people want to either love or hate something. Um, and now maybe there's a reason for people to love and hate something in baseball to watch more. Because in football right now, That's the thing football's had going for him, man. You you loved or you hated Tom Brady and the Patriots, and you love or you hate Mahomes, Kelsey, and Taylor Swift and the Chiefs. And by gosh, most of America hated the Patriots and Tom Brady, and they hate the Chiefs right now. And that
Yeah.
drives people to watch because they have always been there. And in baseball, you haven't been getting that. You haven't had that team that is constantly there to love or hate because in baseball, you have to beat a team more than once to get by them. In the NFL, you don't. In the NFL, if their playoff format was you need to beat somebody multiple times, I'm not going to lie. My Detroit Lions would be in the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so, but because it's one and done and in the NFL, you don't necessarily, you know, get that opportunity to catch lightning in a bottle and figure out, Mahomes, oh, we can do this. No, you better figure it out that day, which is why those teams that are really good are always advancing because the teams that are just below them don't have a chance. And in baseball, you can be the better team and you can go out and kick their ass in game one. Oh boy, game two and three can be very, very different. And the World Series was a great example of that, actually, with the Dodgers and Yankees. Because that one game, man, it just could have went the other way, and then the Dodgers just steamroll like the last few games or whatever. But I think that's the difference in baseball is because you've got to beat these teams multiple times. It's so much harder to consistently be there for teams to hate. And I think it's underrated to know what pitching depth is like and what that can mean in a series in October, as opposed to a football game. And yeah, our top 11 on offense and defense are just better. Well, in baseball, like, yeah, my number one might be better than your number one, but shit, if your number two and three are better than mine, nobody knows how that's going to shake out.
And then plus, it all just depends on, you know, if those pitchers have a good day or not. Because hell,
Oh yeah,
you could have like the greatest pitcher to have ever graced the earth, and if he's having an off day, he's gonna get lit the fuck up.
yeah, yeah.
Because we've seen it so many damn times to where, you know, like the Tim Lincecum days, to where he was clearly by far the best pitcher in baseball. He would go out there and just mow people down left and right for 5, 6 games in a row. Go out
Yep.
there for his seventh game and just get lit up for 8 runs.
Or Clayton Kershaw being the best pitcher in baseball all year, and then he gets to October and then just shits himself.
Yep. Yeah, every time.
Like, so I think that's been the struggle for baseball is they haven't had that consistent team for people to love or hate. Like you've had the Dodgers have been there, the Astros, the Phillies. Oops, sorry, I had a hiccup right there. Um, oh, sorry. I think like my dinner was like, hey, I want to like screw with you right now.
Right.
Um, sorry, I was gonna do something here real quick and kind of. So you here recently, you've had, uh, Dodgers, Yankees, Texas, Arizona, Houston, Philly, Houston, Atlanta, L.A., Tampa, Houston, Washington, Boston, L.A., Houston, L.A., Chicago, Cleveland, Kansas City, New York, Kansas City, San Francisco, Boston, St. Louis, Detroit, San Francisco, St. Louis, Texas, San Francisco, Texas. That's 2010 to present day. That's a lot of different teams in the World
Uh,
Series.
like baseball has been very good with having parity in it, and in all honesty, I think what the biggest thing is for baseball is like it's just so easy for them. It's just so easy for the consumers to see something like we had last year, like
Yeah,
Yankees Dodgers. So many
yeah,
people are like, man, fuck this. Like, I don't
yeah,
want to watch this shit. So they didn't. They found something else better to do.
yeah. You've had 10 different teams in the last 14 years win a World Series. LA, Texas, Houston, Atlanta, Washington, Boston, Chicago, Kansas City, San Francisco, St. Louis. That's insane. And then if you go back 2 more years, you get Philly in New York.
Uh-huh.
That's a lot of different winning teams. That's a lot of different teams uh, in the World Series. And then if you go to the Super Bowl, okay, you go Kansas City, San Fran, Kansas City, Philly, LA, Cincy. Woo, one difference there, right? Tampa, Kansas City, San Fran, New England to LA, Philly, New England, Atlanta, Denver, Carolina. Something happened there. New England, Seattle, Seattle, Denver, Baltimore, San Fran, New York, New England, Green Bay, Pittsburgh. Like that, the variety there is not like baseball.
Nope.
And so you get like when you go through that, you're like, you can see that's a lot of Kansas City and a lot of New England. You've got San Fran in there, you got Philly in there, LA. It's just now people have a reason to hate or love a team. Uh, and so baseball, it's like, look at all those teams that we listed. And then in the NFL, it's like, man, there's a real theme here. A lot of Philly, than more than you would have expected. A lot of New England and a lot of KC. Um,
Uh,
so from an NFC side, you were looking at Philly, San Fran, and LA. And then on the AFC side, it's like, oh, it's pretty much New England and KC. Um, it's, it's easy for people to be like, oh, I hate this team. People say they're not going to watch the Super Bowl, but they're
but they
going
do.
to because they want to see the Chiefs lose.
They want to
And
see the Chiefs lose. They say that they're not going to watch the Super Bowl, but they're tuning in because they want to watch the commercials too. But that's giving the NFL the viewership numbers.
so yeah, it's like they want to see Kansas City lose. Now, I'm not gonna lie. I will watch the first half and then I will probably be done. That has pretty much been my Super Bowl history the past few years because the halftime shows suck and I'm getting old. So I'm like, I want to go to bed so I can go to work the next day and not be tired. And I've had no care. I haven't really. I hate the Chiefs, you know.
Uh-huh.
So, and I hated the Rams that year because of Stafford. Um, I haven't cared to watch. The last Super Bowl I think that I've watched start to finish without like leaving it and then maybe coming back because I'll say like I've stopped watching it and then ended up turning it back on later to see what was going on. The last Super Bowl I watched start to finish may have been the New England Atlanta Super Bowl in 2017.
The one game where you could have actually turned it off and then come back.
Right. Because I know I turned the Philly New England one off at one point. And the New England LA one was boring.
Oh God, yeah. Most boring damn Super Bowl ever.
Um,
I had
I
a
have
buddy
no
of mine
idea.
that was like, "What are you talking about? That Super Bowl was amazing." I'm like, "If you needed a fucking catch up on your sleep, maybe."
Right. Yeah. So, for me, it's been one of those like the Super Bowl halftime shows have sucked, and so I turn it off, and then end up not turning it back on because I don't care. And then it's like, oh yeah, I kind of forgot it was still on. So yeah, I will watch the Super Bowl, but it will probably be only the first half.
Yeah. Speaking of that, is tonight the NFL honors?
Yeah, I was actually just gonna say Defensive Player of the Year was Patrick Surtain second.
Not surprising. And offensive rookie of the year is
James
surprisingly
Conner.
enough not surprising.
Yeah.
He ran away with that by far.
Um, I'm really curious about Coach of the Year.
Me too. I am hoping to God it's Dan Campbell because I will win $56 out of that.
It should be Dan Campbell.
I will not be surprised at all if it's what's his nuts out of Washington though.
It. I'm actually more. It's one of those where I'm like, they're going to give it to Kevin O'Connell, aren't they? That's like what I'm. That's what I'm thinking. But it should be Dan Campbell, and I know Dan Quinn. Like, sure, they made a run in the playoffs there, but they weren't that impressive in the regular season, like Detroit was.
They really weren't, and they weren't even that bad last year. They just needed a quarterback, and then they got one. Look what happened.
Detroit kicked the shit out of people, and they did it with like a third string defense.
Yep.
Like that's the thing. That team was so beat up that it just caught up with them against Washington in the playoffs. But like Washington, they beat the Cowboys by 4. They have to go to overtime to beat Atlanta. Beat the Eagles by 3. They beat the Saints by 1. They lose to the Cowboys. They lose by 1 to the Steelers, but they beat the Giants by 5. They needed a Hail Mary to beat the Bears. They beat the Bengals by 5. They beat the Giants by 3. This is a team that went what? They went
10 and 7.
12 and 5. Very easily could have been 6 and 11.
Yeah.
And so not discounting the job Dan Quinn there, but you have the Lions makeshift defense dismantling the Vikings in the final game of the year. They only beat the Niners by 6, but they consistently pounded teams. Sure, you could argue they could have lost. They should have lost to the Texans. But this is a team that broke Dallas. Literally broke Dallas. They went to overtime to open the year against the Rams, lost to the Bucks. They only beat the Cardinals by a touchdown, but they were in control that whole game. Beat the Vikings by 2. And then, the 3-point win on Thanksgiving against the Bears, beat the Packers by 3. You could argue, they were 15 and 2. But worst case, you're going, they were still 11 and 6, right? Like, as opposed to Washington, who's sub 500 and not even in the playoff conversation, where Detroit, you could go, oh yeah, maybe they're 11 and 6, they're still in the playoffs. And
besides, that game that you guys beat us by 3, we had to come down from fucking 28 points to fucking catch up to lose by 3. So you guys, you were kicking our ass in that game.
I don't know. Let me look. We were
Yeah, you
up
guys were up by like 4 scores.
17. We were up 17-7 at half. You guys ended up taking the lead 21-17. And then we took the lead, then you took the lead, then we took the lead, then you tied it, and then we won. The first time we played you, though, when we in Lambeau, we won by 10, and we just kind of kicked your ass in that game. That's the game you're thinking of. We were up 24-3,
Yeah,
and you got a late score to make it 24-14. Yeah, I mean we were up 10 at halftime in the other game though, and
yeah.
pissed it away, but then won. But yeah, we just kicked the shit out of you in Lambeau. No offense, we did. We just kicked snot out
Yeah,
of you.
that game was so ugly.
Not as ugly as the Lions Jags game though.
Oh god,
52-6. You
that
know,
game was hilarious.
645 yards of offense to 170. Keep in mind, folks, this is the 10th game of the season for the Lions, where people are going, their defense is really banged up, and they go and beat Jacksonville by 40 plus points. You know, people don't realize how beat up that defense was unless you really follow football or are a Detroit Lions fan. Because, I'm not necessarily the biggest Aaron Glenn fan, but geez, he did a hell of a job trying to keep that defense together. And they went 15-2 with guys who wouldn't even be on most of the rosters in the league. I mean, they were dragging up the corpse of Jamal Adams to have him on the squad for a couple weeks. I mean, that's how bad it got on that defense. And I know we're not talking baseball at this point, but like I know I maybe said something that people would be like, "You don't like Aaron Glenn?" I think Aaron Glenn is a terrible in-game coach. I think Aaron Glenn, when he puts together a game plan, if it's successful, um, and the other team can't make successful adjustments, they look really good. But then when they make adjustments, he can't figure out how to adjust back. And if his initial game plan doesn't work, he can't figure out how to make adjustments. And I have two examples for you, Corey. One, Seattle. We were kicking the snot out of Seattle at halftime, and they came out and made adjustments on us on their offense did, and we had to outscore them in the second half because defensively, Aaron Glenn couldn't adjust to the adjustments they made. And then Washington in the playoffs, his initial game plan was not working defensively. Now, sure, Ben Johnson's cute play calling didn't help, but his initial game plan defensively did not work, and he could not figure out an adjustment to make against Washington. Our offense put up over 500 yards in that playoff loss. Our defense gave up over 500 yards to top it off. And that's the problem I've always had with Glenn is the D coordinator is he cannot make in-game adjustments. He struggles with it. And I know part of it, this year it's like, yeah, well, you're dealing with third stringers, but still, when Jaden Daniels is just, on fourth and short and third and short, running to the edge, I don't know, adjust to it.
Especially when it's literally like, hey, I wonder what he's going to do. Right. He just did it.
So that's always been my biggest complaint about Aaron Glenn as a defensive coordinator. It doesn't mean that he's going to be a bad head coach because I think great head coaches surround themselves with great coordinators, regardless of who they are. Bill Belichick says hi, right? I mean, he always had great coordinators, and those guys couldn't go be head coaches because they sucked. Doesn't mean they're not good coordinators. So Aaron Glenn could turn out to be a great head coach. And if he can work with the defense, maybe his D coordinator is just better at in-game adjustments. Now, I think that that Jets team's got some work to do. I think they're going to be blowing some things up there, but you know, it doesn't mean he can't be a great head coach. But yeah, I really do hope it's Dan Campbell gets the coach of the year.
I agree. I would like to have $56.
Because he should have had it last year and got screwed out of it. So.
Yep. Which, by the way, real quick, did you see that stat from the Carolina Panthers defense this year?
No.
This will be a big toot for the Iowa Hawkeyes horn. Josie Jewell missed 5 games this year. In the 5 games he missed, the Panthers defense gave up, on average, 40 points a game. Are hands down worst in the NFL. In the 12 games he played, they gave up 27 points per game.
Wow.
Still worse than the NFL, but a 13-point swing for one fucking guy.
For one guy.
That's a huge swing for this one player.
Hot take here. I know we were talking baseball, but I still love me some football. Hot take. Carolina Panthers, if they make the right moves in the draft and in free agency, borderline playoff team next year.
Uh-huh.
The best thing they ever did was bench Bryce Young.
Oh, God, yeah. It lit a fire under his ass. Holy hell.
It gave him a reset and lit a fire under him, and he started to show he could be the QB everybody thought he could be.
Yep.
And that's a team that started to actually look like a football team.
Oh, God, yeah.
I don't know how much Tampa can hang on with Baker at QB. Not even like, this isn't even a shot at Baker. That man can't keep an offensive coordinator to save his life.
Nope.
And so I don't know if they can handle that turnover. Barkley, Offensive Player of the Year. Duh. Sorry.
Surprise.
But I think Atlanta, they're going to reset. I think not a hard reset, but they're going to build around Penix, and
yep.
I think they're going to have another year or two of missing the playoffs, and the Saints are just a hot mess.
Yeah, they have a lot to fix there.
Yeah, they're a hot mess. So, I can see Carolina, maybe stepping up their game next year if they do the right moves and hitting 10, 11 wins. So, have to see what they do in the draft, see what they do in free agency, but that's a team that could, maybe sneak out that division, because that division's not great. So,
no, it's hands down the worst division in football. It's a disaster.
Yeah, I don't know. The AFC South kind of sucks too.
Yeah, but I mean,
they just have the Texans' bright spot.
Yeah, but I mean, with the NFC South having their only bright spot being Tampa as a 9-win team.
Atlanta wasn't terrible, at least.
I mean, they damn near lost the division 3 different times.
I know. Like, Atlanta wasn't terrible. Like, but those are the 2 worst divisions in football. Yeah. It's a matter of what week. Because there were some weeks where you're like, damn, the NFC South is garbage. And then you turn around and you're like, the AFC South is like, hold my beer, motherfuckers.
Yeah. Especially on those weeks where it's like, you got Penix balling out, Baker balling out, Carolina's balling out. It's like, holy shit, what the hell happened in the NFC South? Damn.
Right. Yeah.
And then the Saints are just doing their thing.
Yeah, the Saints were like,
that was the week that the Saints got their dicks punched in by Green Bay, and like the other 3 teams that beat the piss out of everybody else, and the Saints were like,
Yeah, the Saints are bad. They're bad.
Yeah, so terrible.
But we'll have to do a podcast before the draft, because you'll have some
Yeah,
free agency stuff done in the NFL, and I love the NFL draft, and I think that's when you start talking. We'll see if a Max Crosby or Myles Garrett or Cooper Kupp's been traded, and we'll have to do some pre-NFL draft chatter on the NFL. So
yeah. We'll have to see if Dakota wants to get in on it, and if not, it's
yeah,
just be me. Screw it.
yeah, absolutely.
Because speaking of that, the Packers are hardcore looking at getting a number one receiver, and it just so happens the other day, Devontae Adams tweeted out a picture of him wearing green and gold shoes in his Ferrari or in his Lambo, whatever the hell he drives.
So, but I'll ask you this question though: Is Devontae Adams still a number one receiver?
Hell no. Actually, you know what? Probably, in all honesty, probably. I think with the right system, yes. And in Las Vegas, no. It was not the right system. It is not in the right mindset. I think he just got out of Green Bay for selfish reasons. He did not need out of Green Bay. He
Money.
just wanted away from He just wanted away from Rodgers. I wholeheartedly believe he and Aaron were having some kind of like headbutting issues. And a lot of people say I'm stupid for thinking this because of them being buddies today and both of them showing up on the Pat McAfee show together. And Devontae was at Aaron's house. But I wholeheartedly believe that them playing together / working together for those years ruined their relationship, and Devontae wanted out.
Yeah, I think there was a little bit of that in contract. I mean, because Rogers did say some comments about other people are open to, uh,
Yep.
and I remember I think Orlovsky was breaking down some film where it was like, here's this route right here, and you can see in this game he throws this to Lazard, and but Devontae's calling for the ball, and they do it again here in this playoff loss, and Devontae's calling for the ball again, but he's not open, and Rogers forces it to him, and it gets picked. But look, here's Lazard, same spot, wide open. And so I do think there was some of that going on in Green Bay with the two of them. And and then Devontae wanted paid, and Green Bay notoriously they just don't pay dudes
Nope.
like that. So
Except for now. You
So
had one good season. All right, let's pay you out the ass.
they've always paid their QBs, but they let Greg Jennings go, and basically forced Jordy Nelson to retire.
The only one we didn't do that with was Donald Driver. But I think that's solely because Donald Driver just was more than willing to keep taking pay cuts. He did not want to do it for the money. He just wanted to do it because he loved Green Bay.
So I think there was a little bit of both there, and then he got to Vegas and was like, "Oh shit,
this sucks."
Yeah, like this isn't fun. I need a quarterback, and Derek Carr is not that.
Turns out winning with people that I don't really care about is a lot more fun than losing with people I like.
Yeah, right. So,
all right. But anyways,
I'm excited for the draft.
Before we say what?
I'm excited for the draft and free agency. See what happens.
Yeah, me too. That will be kicking up here in about a week.
Yeah.
Probably start seeing a lot of tampering here kicking up in a week.
No doubt.
But real quick here before we end this baseball turned football podcast real quick. NL West predictions. Where do you think everybody will land in terms of standings?
Alex Bregman is a key in some of this. Alex Bregman goes to Houston, I think they win it. If they don't, if he does not go there, then I think Texas takes it.
The NL West?
Oh, I thought you said AL West. I'm sorry.
No, NL West.
Oh. Well, heck, just you might as well do your AL West prediction since I just did.
Yeah, let's just do AL West. We'll start with the AL. But yeah, I agree. I think if Bregman stays in Houston, which I wholeheartedly think he does, anyways, I just don't know why it's taking this damn long to sign. I think he's just holding out for every little last cent that he can.
Right.
But I believe that the longer he holds out, the longer he's screwing himself. So I think Houston's going to win the division. I think it's going to be tight. I bet it probably goes to game 160, maybe 161 before it's all said and done.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
I think the Rangers finish second with the Mariners nipping hot at their heels. I think it's going to be a really tight three-horse race there.
Agreed.
And obviously, the Athletics, because they eliminated their location from their name, they're just going to finish dead last.
Yes. Okay, AL Central. What's your predictions there?
My prediction I think the Royals are going to get it done this year. I think it's going to be another close division battle. I honestly think it might end up coming down to tiebreakers because I don't see any reason why Cleveland is going to falter enough to lose it anywhere before them. And I think those two are just going to slug it out all year long because the Royals made some really, really good moves this year to build what they've already had from last season. And I think they're going to take the fight to the AL Central and they're going to finally pull them off. Cleveland finishes obviously tied for the first, but losing the tiebreaker, so they'll get the wild card. And the Tigers finish third.
So, once again, I'm going to say I think Alex Bregman is in my factoring here. If he goes to the Tigers, I think that just ekes the Tigers up enough for me to win that division. If he doesn't, I agree. I think the Tigers fall to like third. I really think that an Alex Bregman can catapult the Tigers from being like an 85, 86 win borderline wild card team to a 94 win AL Central champion team. And I think that's the difference between first and third, because I think the top two teams are going to be nipping at each other's heels, and then it's just a matter of who are the top two. So Bregman puts the Tigers up there for me, but without him, I think it's a Cleveland-Kansas City race. And I'm gonna lean Cleveland. I'm gonna say Shane Bieber comes back healthy, returns to Cy Young form, and without Alex Bregman in Detroit, then Cleveland takes that division again.
I'd be all right with that too.
And then in the AL East, I as much as I want to say Baltimore, I can't. They falter late in seasons here lately, and I think it's the Yankees again winning the AL East.
Yeah, I completely agree. So I'm assuming you're going Yankees, Orioles, Red Sox, Rays.
No. Yankees, Orioles, Red Sox, Blue Jays, Rays.
Oh, God, I forgot the Blue Jays.
I just figured you maybe had Toronto last.
No. No, I completely forgot about Toronto.
That's okay. Canada does too.
Yep. They're all still butthurt about the Expos, and they just forget about Toronto.
Who are your three wildcard teams?
I've got Seattle, Detroit, and
And then Cleveland. Then obviously you said Cleveland already. So
yeah.
see, I have Baltimore as a wild card team again. I think that's still a really good baseball team in Baltimore.
Oh wait, God, I can't do Seattle.
Oh.
Shit. Texas,
What?
Detroit. Yeah, I can't do Seattle because I had Seattle finishing third in the division.
Yeah.
Texas, Detroit, and Cleveland.
Texas, Detroit, Cleveland. Okay. Yeah, I've got Baltimore. I think one still a pretty good baseball team. Product of the division as well. Being able to beat up on Toronto and Tampa will help them too. Like I don't think Boston's going to be bad, but they're going to be middle of the road. So I got Baltimore as a wild card team. I think Kansas City. So this all kind of depends, right? Detroit wins the division, then I've got Cleveland and Kansas City. But if Cleveland wins the division, I actually think that drops. And it drops Detroit enough where you can give me Texas, because then Bregman would be in Houston, so I'd have Houston winning the division, and so Detroit would be third, and then I would take Texas as a wild card team with Houston winning the division. Otherwise, if Bregman goes to Detroit, I've got two wild card teams out of that division again. Cleveland and Kansas City, and then I got Texas as the division winner. So sorry, mine's a little more complicated just because I think Bregman's just a really big factor to me.
Yeah.
But let's go to the NL. Tell me, NL West, who you got, and why is it the Dodgers?
Well, I wholeheartedly believe the Dodgers are going to break the MLB record for wins in a season.
117 then, right? Because it was 116, isn't it? Not what Seattle had.
Yep. I believe they will have over 120. So for me, my over-under for the Dodgers is 120. And I would not be surprised if they get 130 wins this year. Because with that rotation and that bullpen and that offense, I don't see why they can't get 130 plus wins this year. It's fucking ridiculous. I don't see why they can't.
I mean, I do as well have the Dodgers winning that division. I got them kind of like topping out about like 110. I think at the end of the year, they're going to, tinker some things around to get some guys a rest, get themselves set up for the postseason. And then I think they'll hit like a stretch in like mid-June where they're like fucking around and trying to find out, and they lose some games that you're not expecting. So I kind of got them like topping out around 110 though, in that win category, which is still a whole hell of a lot of wins. But yeah, I mean, it's the Dodgers, so we don't need to talk more about that. Who do you got winning the NL Central?
The Cubs.
Yeah, right. Enough about the NL Central then. NL East. Who you got?
Philly.
Same here. I think it'll be tighter than people expect, though.
Yeah, I think with a very healthy Atlanta, they are going to make it very, very tight.
Yeah. So who are your three wild card teams then out of the NL?
San Diego, Arizona, and Atlanta.
I wish we were different.
I wish too.
I mean, it's once again, I know people would be like, I can't believe you don't have the Mets. But I still, it's one of those, the Mets caught lightning in a bottle last year, added Juan Soto, and now have expectations. this is
And
when
in
the
all
Mets
honesty, I don't think they
crumble.
added anything worth a shit with for pitching either. Like,
Not,
oh,
I mean, they
they
added some
added Sean
guys where you're
Manaea.
like,
Oh boy.
they added some guys where you're like, those are nice number fours.
right?
But I mean, I do think the Mets will actually they'll challenge San Diego for the last wild card spot because I think Arizona is better than San Diego. Arizona
Yeah, I
almost
think their
got in
pitching staff
last
is better.
year. People forget Arizona, they were in the World Series 2 years ago and they almost made the playoffs again last year. And then they went and got Corbin Burns.
Yep.
And
And
so
then I know they lost their hot shot power hitting first baseman, but that's fine. They didn't need him. They added Corbin Burns. They added another arm or two in the bullpen as well to stiffen up that bullpen. So pitching is what ultimately got them to the World Series a couple of years ago. And
it
then last
was.
season they had some key injuries there in the middle of the season to where they went on a big stretch of losing, which ended up costing them a playoff spot. So I think with
Yeah.
them being healthy and adding Corbin Burns, I mean I think they'll probably essentially quote unquote win the division by a couple games over San Diego.
Right. Yeah. And then San Diego will win the last wild card by a few games over the Mets. Like, I'm not saying the Mets are going to be
Yeah.
awful. I just
No.
it's just one of those when you see the Mets, I have these expectations and then they crumble. Remember when they had like Scherzer and Verlander, and to just they were terrible. And
Right. Everybody expected that they were going to win like 100 plus games, and they didn't even win 70.
And so, yeah, I look at this team and I'm like, yeah, they added Juan Soto, they brought Pete Alonso back, and they have Lindor. Like, they're not a bad team. But I think the Braves being healthy again make the Braves pretty damn good. And it's going to be a struggle for the Mets to win 90. Like, they're going to peter out, in my opinion, around like 86, 87, and that will just be not enough to get the Padres.
Yep. I agree. I think the Dodgers win over 120. Arizona wins between 90 95. My guess is probably about 95. San Diego wins about 90 93. And then the Mets, they probably win like 89 88, which
Yeah.
is a good year for anybody else, but
Especially if they're in third place,
right. I mean, 89 wins for a third place team. That's a damn good year, but it's just not enough for you.
But if the Phillies are winning 96, 97 and the Braves win 92,
right, it's just not enough.
And I have Arizona probably right around like 93 wins and San Diego at like 90. The Cubs are going to win like 89 games because the division's bad. But like,
Yeah,
that might be the only team in the NL Central above 500.
see, for me, I think the Cubs will probably win 90. I think that's like a hard cap, 90. And that's just because of their offense. And they do have some decent pitching right now. It's decent. That's it. But
in the 90, it's like it's because of the division,
Yeah,
Like
100%. Just because the Reds, they're so terrible. And the Pirates, when Paul Skeens is not pitching, they're so terrible. And
the Cardinals, when Sonny Gray is not pitching, terrible.
Right.
Now.
And the Brewers, when, anybody is pitching and their offense is not on it, are terrible. So
Like the second place team in the NL Central, like for real, might win 78 games.
Yeah.
Like I think that division's going to be pretty bad, and so you're going to get some of those teams and the good teams in the East and the West picking off more wins than usual because of that. Because obviously, like the NL West, they're gonna beat up on the Giants and the Rockies. In the East, they're gonna beat up on the Nats and the Marlins. But now, instead of like
Yeah.
only having a couple teams that are bad in the Central for them to grab wins from pretty easily, you have four. So,
hmm
like, it's like oofta, you know. Um,
Yeah.
but it's all cyclical too. Like it wasn't that long ago the NL Central was loaded. Um,
Oh God, yeah.
so it all comes full circle. Um, just like in football, the AFC used to be garbage and then the NFC dominated. I mean, now shit, NFC can barely win a Super Bowl, right? Um,
Yep.
so it is what it is. It all comes full circle. It does in college sports too. You know, Big Ten used to
Well,
stink at football for a while, and they were great at basketball. Flip it now. Um, remember the SEC was terrible at basketball like 4 years ago. Now it's like the best basketball conference right now.
right?
So
Like, what the hell happened?
well, it's crazy when you invest money into the sport and then invest money into actually having good coaches. What can
Right.
happen, you know? But it all comes full circle. And while the NL Central might be bad this year, um, it's very likely in 3 years you're looking at some pretty good baseball teams in the NL Central. So
Yeah, I agree. And like, I so badly want to say I think the Brewers are going to win more than 80 games because I've had some buddies, I've got some baseball buddies that I chat with, and they're like, oh, well, you got to have more faith in the Brewers than that. Like, look what you guys did last year with what you've got, and you're getting Woodruff back healthy, and you got Nestor Cortez. And I'm like, oh, thanks for reminding me. I got to watch that fucking jackass throw 30 times a year with his fucking, will I or will I not throw the ball?
uh,
All fucking game long.
yeah,
Like, God, every time I see him throw the ball, it just makes me want to fucking kill myself. It's like, dude, just throw the goddamn ball.
yeah, I'm expecting the Cardinals to win like low 70s to mid 70s. Like they're really in a hard reset right now. I mean, like I said, Mozeliak is on his way out after
Uh-huh.
this year, and they're doing that weird transition to a new GM. They've already said we're investing back into our farm system. They let Paul Goldschmidt go. They're Nolan Arenado's on the trade market. Um, they move Contreras from catcher to first. This is a team literally in a hard reset right now. And once, and I think they want to fire Marmol to top it off. So what
Yeah.
other way to fire Marmol than suck? And then I think they want to bring in a new manager with the new GM as they are investing in the farm system. And I think in 2 to 3 years, you're going to see a St. Louis Cardinals team that's going to be winning, in the upper 80s again. And then they'll get back to that farm system and adding a key guy here or there and like free agency to try to put them over the top. So it was much needed. I think they were hanging on by the threads there for too long, and finally the threads broke.
Yeah.
So it happens.
Well, here's the spring training coming up in just a
Yeah,
few days.
right.
But yeah, we'll definitely have to get together and uh, get uh get something together for our other podcast so we can talk some more football.
Absolutely.
But
So
that's it for this baseball one.
all right, man.
Good chat. We will
Catch everybody in the next one then.
yeah, sounds good. Take
All
care.
right, peace out.